Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic show. This is episode 957. We've got a returning friend of the show and a regular on our monthly roundtable show. We've got Spencer Forman with us, the founder of WP-Launchify, a well-known WordPress influencer, an elder. and it should be a great show. We're going to be discussing, are we doomed? Doomed, my beloved tribe. Are we indulged? Are we going to be replaced by the dreaded AI? You know, there's already some influencers hinting that we're already doomed. I find it. I'm ready. I'm quite hilarious. Yeah, he's ready. Should be a great show. Some great insights. So, Spencer, can you give us just a quick 10, 20-second intro, and we go into your background in more detail in the main part of the show?
My pleasure. Always enjoy being here with both you fellas. This is Spencer Forman, and I've been around WordPress since almost the beginning, 2006. And my primary living is helping people build their online businesses with WordPress. But the systems I use are essentially, think of WordPress as if it was a service, so that I help people with the outcomes, not just all the parts. And I also have regular office hours and other shows on YouTube, but John and I and Kurt and I have all been pals and working together. So this is a fun topic to see how far we've come with WordPress after all these years.
That's great. And I've got my ever great co-host, Kurt. Kurt, would you like to introduce yourself to the new listeners and viewers?
Sure, Jonathan. My name is Kurt Von Onen. I own an agency called Mañana No Mas. We focus largely on membership and learning websites and work directly with WP-Tonic and the great folks at Lifter LMS.
That's fantastic. Before we go into the meat and potatoes of this great show and topic, got a message from one of my major sponsors. We will be back in a few moments, folks.
Hi there, e-commerce store owner. At Omnisend, we help more than 100,000 e-commerce customers, just like you, sell their products. We're an all-in-one email and SMS marketing platform that helps you reach your customers, grow your audience, and increase sales. In fact, our customers have seen incredible results with Omnisend, averaging $72 in revenue for every single dollar spent. And if you ever have a question, our award-winning customer support team is available 24/7 every single day. That's one of the reasons we have more than 6,000 glowing reviews and ratings all across the web. So get started with Omnisend today and start growing your business with better email and SMS marketing.
We're coming back, folks. I want to point out we've got some great special offers from the sponsors. Plus, we got a created list of the best WordPress plugins and services, all tried by the WP-Tonic agency and hosting company. So they're all quality products with some special pricing as well. You can get all these goodies by going over to wp-tonic.com/deals. wp-tonic.com/deals. What more could you ask for, my beloved WordPress professionals? Probably a lot more, but that's all you're going to get from that.
You know what I was going to say, but I'm not going to say it.
No, you did remain silent for a while. I know it was difficult, Spencer, but you did control yourself.
Decaf, half cap decaf.
Yes. I know controlling yourself is extremely difficult, but there we go. So, Spencer, maybe you can delve in a little bit more detail about how did you get into the kind of semi-crazy world of WordPress and SaaS? And, because your background's, my understanding, is the law and property development. But how did you get into the crazy world of online business, SaaS, WordPress?
So I'm going to put it in a visual so people can follow. Everybody,
is it clean?
Clean enough. Everybody's heard of the hero's journey, but for the Gen X crowd, go Gen X. Let's think of the VH1 behind the music. The hero's journey looks like this inverted bell, and you kind of start at the bottom and you work your way up, and then you hit this top thing and whoa, drama. And then you find yourself in this, I think, enviable position at the end of the drama where you enter the third part of the journey. The first part is up, the second part is the curve, the third part is the down. So I'm about 19 years into WordPress roughly, and it started when I was going through a lot of personal turmoil and business change because I had 2 young kids. I had a third one on the way. I was divorced, fighting for child custody. I was a practicing real estate developer who had tons of property and lots of tenants. Everything was going well, but the world was pulled out from under us in those days in 2006, 7, 8 through 11 because of the changes in the banking industry. So myself and many of my peers had to look for alternative things to do. And I had a moment in time when I really literally had to choose about whether I was going to go back to some of the skills I had, like practicing law, which would have been a really backward step for me because I'd come from law to real estate, or if I was going to try something new. So one of my passions was flying, and there was this new thing that was a SaaS solution called Ning, started by a then singular billionaire, Mark Andreessen, and his ex-girlfriend, Gina Bianchini, who now runs the company of the same name, Mighty Networks. But back then they called it Ning to repurpose some of Mark Andreessen's technology they had tried to sell to industry called Loud Cloud. And they said, build a social network for any reason. And I was captivated by the idea that I could share some of my flying adventures, both video and photography, even in the rudimentary form before YouTube. It got me hooked on what technology could do. The downside was I had a great degree of accidental success in that social networking that led to me being vaulted into a position of being very well paid and learning how wonderful and amazing it can be to be in software. When they shut everybody down, we ultimately found ourselves going through this journey we'll tell on another day to WordPress. And the cool thing about WordPress is back then, Matt Mullenweg said, do it for whatever you want, build it for whatever you want. You own it, control it. And that was really a refreshing change from what had just happened. Well, that's what I've been doing the last 18 years, showing people how to basically recreate their own business processes in WordPress. But we've been slowly building up the library of stuff that's necessary. We finally achieved that. And guess what? That's when the politics of WordPress almost make it like a deja vu, because now Mullenweg is acting a certain way about the things that we've all built. And I'm here to say, good news. Unlike the last time, this time we all can choose to do whatever we want because the software is open source. And here I am, sort of like hero's journey, over the top, ready to enter the third phase of life, doing exactly the kind of stuff that I like to do. And then I think a lot of Gen X and boomers would appreciate knowing how to do as well, because that's what our future looks like when AI has replaced a lot of the other mundane tasks. So that was my long, short version. Hopefully not too long.
No, it's fine. I just got a quick follow-up question that's always puzzled me. Well, not puzzled, but I want to ask you before I throw it over to Kurt. What was it about the law that made it so personally very unattractive to you to go back to your roots and the law?
Have you ever seen the movie Gladiator, the good one with Russell Crowe, not the second one? The second one's okay, but the first one with Russell Crowe, the paradox of his hero's journey, which I feel represents some of my own choices, is that I was exceptionally good at being a trial attorney. I did medical malpractice, product liability, and stuff. But after working on the defense side and realizing that was a game of delay and slow down people and cheat people, I went to the plaintiff side, which somebody would argue has its own smarminess. But like Russell Crowe in Gladiator, to be successful at that, you had to find people who had horrific injuries and problems. Then you had to go in and kill, win, win, win. There was never any opportunity in trial work for a mutually beneficial outcome. It was kill or be killed. So like Russell Crowe didn't want to fight anymore, but he had to fight and kill people to get to where he wanted to be with his wife and kid in the afterlife. I'm hoping to do this without going to the afterlife. But I'm saying if I had gone back to doing trial work, I would have basically never been able to end up where I am today, which is building the kind of life and the outcome that could be mutually beneficial for everybody. Because as anybody who listens to me or heard me before has said, I am very, very much a humanist and a new age person. And I believe that humans are on the cusp of, let's say, greatness, of understanding how capable we are of supporting and loving each other and doing all good. But we have to get through a lot of stuff to get there.
Rightio. Over to you, Kurt.
Isn't it cool when you go over the hump in the bell and you can kind of do whatever you want?
It's a crazy ride. And I want to say I'm not there yet, but I am using the tools and I'm trying to help other people realize Jane Fonda talked about in a podcast she did with Julia Louis-Dreyfus from Seinfeld. She's, Jane Fonda had a very controversial youth, and then she was married to 2 different billionaires. And she says, like, the 3rd chapter of my life is going to be drama-free and all about me. And not in a selfish way, but that's the way anybody who's gotten to 50 plus feels about life, right? Like, I only have so many dots left on my little punch card. I got to use them in a valuable way. And all of the drama of the things that, motivated you in earlier days is not as important. So that's what I feel like as well. It's like, I have an opportunity as the elder statesman to influence the marketplace of WordPress, to influence the markets of other people in my generation who want to do things differently, and hopefully influence humanity in my own little tiny way, person to person.
Nice. Well, I got to jump us on to our next question. I don't think the timing could be better, seeing what WordPress.com posted on their X account yesterday.
It's most bizarre, isn't it? I thought this would be a good topic. This happens, doesn't it, Kurt?
The timing is just uncanny. But it says just dropped.
It's amazing.
Just dropped. It's a free AI website builder on WordPress.com.
I've never seen that before.
Tell AI what you need and get a fully built website in minutes. No coding, no drag and drop, no stress.
Right.
Handles all the layout, the images and text. You can tweak anything. Just ask AI.
I tweak everybody anyway with my personality. But what I want to say about that is it's amazing. There's another one that came out that's called Relationship Builder, AI Relationship Builder. It's so awesome. You go there and you just type 1 sentence about the perfect relationship you want, and it just automatically fixes everything in your life. Just exactly the same as this page builder does for building websites. Just type a sentence and the whole thing is done. It's fine. You never have to do anything else ever again.
So I know we have some thoughts.
Nobody ever.
I know we have some thoughts, but connected to AI,
yeah,
and people feeling like freelancers and agencies and people are going to get pushed out of the space. Where are you at? Like, do you think we're really going to push freelancers and agencies out of the space, or do you think people are going to get so overwhelmed by the AI drama and shiny object that they're going to go, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. I need help anyway.
Are you Sarakana? Okay, so here's what I think. Imagine that snow globe that you used to keep on your desk, right, with a little Santa, and you take that. That's the world we live in.
Citizen Kane, here we come.
Citizen Kane, right? He's on his deathbed, by the way, asking about Rosebud, which is also hero's journey. Like, all that mattered was that thing from his childhood. You shake it up. The way I view the AI situation is this is shaking up the current status quo where people had been utilizing the tools that normal people don't necessarily have access to in order to achieve things that are not really in alignment with the value they're delivering. Okay, so not pointing at any particular person, but we all know that the tools exist for somebody who stumbled in the past on luckiness to put together the same powerful results as an agency might charge $250,000 for, hardly with a straight face in today's world. The agency is taking advantage in the same way that the cable company says, oh, we're going to add HBO. It's going to cost you another $60 because we got to send more data down your cable. Everybody knows there's no more data. The data's already there. They're just choosing what to rip me off on. Okay. So by shaking up the snow globe and making it mainstream that AI is everywhere, what I think in a very thumbs up positive way, for freelancers who wish to have human relationships, you are going to be killing it. Winning, 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 winning. Why? Because now everybody and their mother has heard this term AI about their business, about their this, about their that, and they all got to figure out I need that AI thing. Well, guess what? You can now be their liaison, their concierge to the AI world. But guess what you got to stop doing? You got to stop believing the BS that there's a AI page builder, website builder that you just type a sentence into and it's done, because that is just as fake as my example of like a relationship maker that you can type a sentence into. Relationships are a give and take, an up and down, a drama day, and it's a lifestyle. And you have to be the same way when it comes to building websites. Even if you just choose a bunch of blocks, that's actually closer to the final result and the skills you need than typing words into AI. What AI allows you to do, I'm sure we'll talk more about, is to have more capability in one human with less work. So instead of me needing 5 or 6 freelancers or 12 people, Spence solo can do what 12 people used to do and do it better, but not by pretending that I can just have AI do it all for me magically. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. I know Jonathan's got an extension question on AI. Turn it over to Jonathan.
Oh, right, you caught me out, Sam. You caught me out. Yeah, I totally see where you're coming from, and I agree. I just, it's a tool. It's a fabulous tool. Large language models. It's amazing what they can do, but then you got this whole discussion about general AI, general intelligence. You got people, scientists, people that I semi-respect, and they're saying, well, it's going to change society in the next 5-7 years and totally replace some of the big bedrocks of our society. And I just kind of roll my eyes because I just don't know. I just don't understand how you can make such predictions with such cast iron conviction. What's your own response to that?
So we were talking a moment ago, not in jest, about when you get over a certain point in your life, you just no longer are reactive to predictions and things of drama. It's just, it wears you out. So for example, I lived through in my youth, the Russians are going to murder all of us, nuclear weapons. Then the next day, one day, all of a sudden we're friends with the Russians. Then I lived through all the various viruses and contagions. I lived through Y2K, guaranteed January 1st, 2000, the world is over. Then I lived through the December 2012 prediction. And now we're at, there's a million other things that I do believe are probably happening or going to happen. But the end of the day, AI by itself is not capable of replacing the final mile, which is until or unless there literally are Terminator robots walking around with AI that can impersonate humans, or something else that involves, some very new agey thing. As long as humans are the ones receiving the benefit of it, we've already seen how this works in practice. There needs to be a cultural choice or a humanity choice, which is, by the way, I think relevant. We live in a world of infinite abundance, and I'm not going to go on a soapbox on this, but what I think is important to realize is historically, of all recorded human history, societies have only worked when there is a somewhat balanced differential between the haves and the have-nots. Because the skills that we're all doing now were promised when I was a kid watching the Jetsons to not be necessary. The point at which we had these computers and all this technology was so that we could sit around in our Sky City just having a ball, and maybe showed up at Spacely Sprockets for some reason, but not having to work 10 jobs to afford a taco on a loan from Klaviyo, which is where we're at today. So the real
I took my load out yesterday, actually.
Right? I needed extra cheese. Hold on, I'm waiting for my approval. Is that we need a distribution. This isn't a politics thing. This is a humanity. We need a distribution that represents the true, what's the reason we're all here doing all this for? Are we making websites to earn money because it's helping humanity, or are we doing it to earn a living to pay for food? Because at the end of the day, there's lots of things that we should have had removed by robots and AI a long time ago. That's awesome. The things that they shouldn't be doing is making people going back into factories in 2025. It should be we should all be pursuing a higher purpose, teaching, education, music, something. But the problem is society is a capitalist society, and I'm a capitalist. You can't just jump off from yesterday we all made fabrics by scratch to looms, in the turn of the century with Luddites. You can't do that without friction. And this is what we're experiencing right now, very similar to the Industrial Revolution, but at a speed that is incomprehensible.
So just a quick follow-through question, which should have been the main question, really. There seems, especially in the no-code movement, which I totally, in some ways, totally support, the ability to rapidly prototype, to build a minimum viable app, product, website, whatever it is, to find out if there's any service product fit to the target audience. These are all, to me, great concepts. But recently, I kind of seen people who I think underestimate the amount of experience they've got and underplay it, and then overinflate what more sophisticated no-code solutions can really do for you, especially in the WordPress space.
Right.
Do you think I'm on the right track there, or I'm sorry?
Yeah. So let's break out the tool set for a second. And there's some popular topics that are now up for debate because, by the way, I can speak directly about Matt Mullenweg because Matt Mullenweg is.
Do you have to? Because you've already got me into trouble.
I've already
with
been
him.
kicked out of the WordPress community by Matt Mullenweg's.
Well, I was never part of it, but there we go.
This is like being kicked out of like a mall. I'm not really kicked out. I'm just, they just erased 18 years of my history on the blackboard, but it means nothing because it was not.
You're not bitter, are you, Spencer? Are you?
No, but I feel that this is relevant to the topic. So here's what goes down. When you have a group of people in this unusual situation where after 18, 19 years, we put together what is essentially running half of the internet as a framework, and everybody is contributing the parts. We used to sit around, a few of us, in a campfire, and it grew and grew and grew into this like ridiculously large thing. And in the ecosystem, Matt encouraged everybody to independently create solutions and to sell them in some way, but with the caveat that the code is always free. The code is always the part that's shared. That's the part of the open source, which is really important, which ended up being his own linchpin because it applies to the core as well as to the things people made. Now, I'm not going to talk about his behavior, but I'm talking about the marketplace that we've developed was based upon these series of principles. Now that we're here, we have people who have very capably come up with band-aids or solutions or replacements for some of the things missing in the core, as well as a decision about, well, how can you use the tools most efficiently? And in that sense, we've now got a few kind of big concepts: full site editing, Gutenberg block, the various page builders that still exist. And then you've got folks who are pals of mine like Kevin Geary, who are like on the edge case saying, look, we can replace a lot of the metaphors of how even the core CSS framework works with another tool. What does it mean to mere mortals? It means that you're left with an even more complex set of questions, because imagine if you went to a store and instead of IKEA, where everything was organized and uniform and thought through and had the same, language-less instructions and uniform around the world. Imagine if, depending on the day of the week, IKEA had different products from different people with different instructions, with different manufacturers, different terms, different shelves. You would never get anything done. But when you go to IKEA, no matter where in the world, everything gets done. When you go to Lego store. So the difference is Mullenweg has never taken a position of let's make WordPress as a service that makes choices from the available stuff. And in doing so, make it easier for mere mortals to just walk into WordPress like they do Wix or Weebly, right? When you go to Wix, there's no who are you going to hire and what parts and what generation and which page builder. The schizophrenic nature of WordPress can be a real drag. So that is where I feel that the solution lies. It's right now being done on an individual level by several renegades, including myself, saying this is what I feel WordPress should be. But it really has been offered up by some people as this could be the future of WordPress as a platform if we wanted it. And that's where the AI kicks in as well, because when everybody has a uniform set of tools and a platform, we can focus our energy in improving the singular AI use of this instead of what's happening now, which is me too. Look, I made a page builder that uses AI and it doesn't do shit, but you're going to waste all week dicking around with it only to end up realizing it would have been faster just to use a blank page and just plop a couple blocks into it. And that's why I'm frustrated about Mullenweg. He refuses to take a stand.
I see where you're coming from, but I don't quite agree with that.
Well, I mean, that's why we know,
because fundamentally, to me, it's just a added element to what a starter theme is, or a starter website, or what term, whatever you want to use. So you don't have a blank sheet, a blank page, because a lot of people, it's just like writing. My ex-wife was a fantastic writer, but she could never, half the time, she could never get over the blank page syndrome, getting going. She just froze. I'm a dyslexic, but I've never had that. Actually, when I get into it, I quite like putting my thoughts down.
Yeah.
You know, but I've never had a problem. But loads of people say it's the same metaphor, but it's on steroids, isn't it?
Well, but let's just break it out as to what's the real thing that's being improved or not. What I'm saying is the starter templates, particularly like I lean on the Cadence starter templates. They're beautiful. You can go to Astra, you go to Bricks. There's lots of starter templates, but all those are the various Gutenberg block components pre-designed into some suggested pages and layouts, right? But they're really helpful. In fact, they're so helpful that that's what I'm saying is the only thing you need. You just take the classic starter templates, and if you see one or more pages or even a whole theme that is appealing to you, I have tested and proven many times in public on live shows, it is faster and easier to simply go, I need a homepage for a membership site, and get it from the starter templates or from the design elements, and then change the words. That is infinitely faster and better than being forced to go through the gauntlet of some completely bullshit generic AI questionnaire and trying to hope that the results spit back by the robot are even remotely close to what you already looked at and said, yes, I want the double cheeseburger, just don't put pickles on it. I mean, that's what we're talking about.
Thanks for that. You clarified it.
Does that help? I mean, does that?
Yeah,
you know,
it did. I see where you're coming from now.
Ask the AI. Hold on. Like in my last show, I said, take a starter template page. Let's see if we just asked the generic chat GPT even, give me a page that has certain elements in it for selling something or other. And we did it, and we just copied the words into the starter template. Immediate success versus asking Cadence AI, make a page about this, and it came up with some random Disney, parable or something. You see what I mean? Like there was less control because we were using the AI's perspective.
Well, they're already doing that with Snow White, aren't they?
We could do a live test now, but I mean, it put people to sleep. But I'm saying that's what happened.
I think the whole film was made by AI, actually. But there we go. So let's go for our break. We've had a fascinating discussion so far. I knew it was going to be a good one. We will be back in a few moments, folks.
Tired of hosting providers that can't handle high traffic loads? Conversio is here to help. Our platform can handle any amount of traffic, all without slowing down or crashing. With immediate Slack support, performance optimization, and a team that thrives on resolving technical challenges, your e-commerce business is in safe hands. Learn more about Conversio at conversio.com.
We're coming back, folks. We've had a feast on throwing AI into the ditch. Not really. No, not really. I'm only kidding. But before we go into the fab second half, I want to point out, if you're looking for a great WordPress hosting partner, especially if you're building a membership, a community-focused website, and you want all the latest, best technology and people that really understand what you're trying to build, why don't you look at partnering with WP-Tonic? We provide, like I say, all the technology, all the knowledge from a partner, plus some great packages aimed at you, the WordPress professional. You can find more by going over to wp-tonic.com/partners, wp-tonic.com/partners. We love to build something special together. Over to you, Kurt.
Hey, well, I feel like we've had some fun at the first part of the show, maybe even just poking a little bit of fun. WordPress.com's X account and their AI announcement, and we mentioned Cadence and Astra and things like that. But let's look at the other side of this coin, the other side of the spectrum, because all three of us have admitted to using AI. I guess I'm the third one to admit it in this show, right?
I do it like I can't live without AI anymore. That's the point.
I subscribe to this, what I consider a new tool, this Magi.ai thing, and it combines a bunch of tools together, which for me works really good because then I can kind of pick and choose what I'm using all in one screen. I don't like having to hunt and peck around different things. But anyway, I digress. From your perspective, Spencer, what's like the most exciting opportunity considering the blend of AI and WordPress, like in your mind? Like what's your perfect use case for where we're at right now?
I mean, it's a great question. And I think it's important to say it. I'm not Luddite at all. I'm the opposite. I'm enthusiastic about AI. What I'm suggesting is what I'm about to elaborate upon, which is that we have a unique opportunity in the WordPress space in particular to deliver solutions that are based upon a framework that already runs not only half the internet, but that has an infinite array of built-in tools, which, although this sounds very geeky because you're into motorsports, I'm into it, you're into bikes, I'm into it. Like if you start talking about, hey, I got a Shimano 7-speed 52 teeth crank, and somebody hears you, they're like, what? But when you get into WordPress and get super geeky, you realize, holy moly, we have every high-end feature plus a really simple PHP, HTML, CSS, even jQuery and Node.js. We have APIs. We have everything like a fairy tale to build anything. But here's where the future is, according to Uncle Spence. What I have discovered accidentally in doing the Minute Launch Kit and having all these customers where I've curated out the parts like IKEA is that all of a sudden we've got a private box that everybody can own and control. And through selective hosting partners who go along with what I've asked for, which is a modern Kubernetes container with CDN built in, like all the hosting stuff just taken out of the equation, almost like with cell phones. We don't think about it anymore. It's just 5G, it works. Okay. You have a box into which Uncle Spence and other people can use the AI to take your data and keep repurposing your data in the feedback loop of users to make it better and more attractive and more intelligent and more purposeful. And a singular entrepreneur, huge big thing here, a singular entrepreneur using that system can literally be like the Wizard of Oz, can literally be like Willy Wonka, but without the Oompa Loompas. You can essentially generate a business for the type of income that an individual definitely can live very comfortably on, but even a multi-million-dollar a year company. Why? Because you've eliminated all of the variabilities, and also you've made free in a private box all of the data to train this infinite brain power upon. And that's where you can focus its energy like a magnifying glass, on the sidewalk onto a pinpoint of what you want it to do. So what I've done in a practical sense now is taken my clients, and with the data they collect, products, product sales, customers' journeys, the marketing automation, the forms they filled out, the content they posted, the social networking stuff. All of that data is now available on the back end to be used as training in a private way for the AI to spit out customer support responses, new blog content, social media, answering questions in public, even with my voice. Jonathan has to do this. I have my voice in 11 Labs, so I can make, hey, you want to listen to me on your jog or while you're riding your bike instead of reading my stuff? Here's an audio answer. That is the future that's amazing, because what I'm focused 100% on, and so are my customers, is the relationship with people who say, I don't know what this AI thing is, but I really need it because all my competitors have it, or I've seen it on the TV. Can you please spoon feed it to me? And I do it at a price that is a SaaS price. You can get the whole kit and caboodle for $97 a month, or parts of it for $47, $20, whatever. But most people, the $97 achieves a replacement for tens of thousands of dollars of time, money, effort, heartbreak, and it still gives you that full ownership and control, which, by the way, is important to me, because when you full circle back to the Ning thing I mentioned, 2006, they shut down 12,500 of my customers, all of their customers who used my stuff. They just threw them in the garbage. Does that sound like anything we're hearing about today? I think it does. I got kicked out of WordPress after 19 years, threw away all my stuff because somebody got the word from Mullenweg. Well, guess what? I already knew that was going to happen, so none of it affected me this time or my clients. Huge difference when you're building a business today. You can't just build on a SaaS platform without fear that somebody's going to don't like the way you're looking and shut your whole thing down. So you have to be proactive. And that's why I'm very bullish on AI. And by the way, the tools like you use, the compilation tools, those are amazing. I use several of those, Lindy, and I can go down a list.
Oh, don't go into that yet. That's a separate question.
Sure. I actually kind of wanted to follow up with part of your answer there, and I'm really intrigued by this because I have certain clients in these spaces, or I should say close to these spaces. When I'm talking to a pure startup and they're talking about, oh, I want to automate this and AI that and AI the other, I'm like, you don't have any data yet. You don't have any content. What are you training this thing on? Like if you think you're going to open it up and say, give me an answer from the internet, and it starts pulling data from like Prudential Insurance Company from 1978, you're giving the wrong information. So there's a certain level where if you're going to train the tool on the content, they have to have that content. Where do you see customers like as a barrier of entry to these kinds of tools?
Well, I mean, one of the big topics you're just alluding to, which is that we don't really have any guarantees other than a contractual promise that they're not going to use public data for their own purposes. So if you use a tool that's got a public interface, like most LLMs, you're essentially in the terms of service agreeing that whatever you put in there is likely going to end up in some training somewhere.
Yeah.
Who knows? Now, there are promises and contractual ones at that have yet to be proven in court that if you use a promise of a API in your own website, or if you use one of the new, like Claude and Perplexity have these things which they claim they're your private reservoirs, containers, whatever. But either way, at least you're one step closer to what is promised to not end up like pictures of you in the shower on the internet. Okay. Now, what I'm saying to people is, as long as you're using a public LLM instead of, ironically, that very controversial Chinese one that came out, it was available in a standalone do-it-yourself. And they kind of said they looked through the code and it looks like it doesn't have any nefarious stuff if you host it yourself. But if you do use the hosted one, I mean, you know it's going right to the CCP. So in this case, if you use one of the private LLMs, or if I think you use a reputable company like Claude or ChatGPT, OpenAI, to API into your WordPress site, I think you can say safely that your data will remain inside of your site. That's the best I can offer to people because I'm an attorney who did trial work. And one of the things that always amazes me, especially when the Mullenweg thing comes up, is people who don't understand how the court system works think it's like, you know, some LA law drama or some or modern lawyer show where you just have this contract and the whole case is over. No, it's just people arguing, and then the trier of fact decides who's got enough information to persuade them. And it doesn't always work out that way. So if your private stuff ends up in the public realm, boo-hoo for you, because I don't think I can promise you it's not going to happen. But the benefit of trying it, at least in a limited way, super leverage. So your client can train it on some sample data, but then as they and their clients interact with the products, with the sales, with the social networking community, with reading blog posts, with submitting forms, all of that stuff can be used to improve and republish more stuff. And that's where the echo chamber effect, when done properly, can work in your favor. It can like magnify something that's very small into something very efficient.
Nice. Thanks. Jonathan, over to you.
Yeah, I've got a kind of follow-through question. I just wonder if you got any advice. I'm already noticing from some of our larger clients that are not that knowledgeable about WordPress, but they think they are. And they're already suggesting, well, why don't you just use a prompt and get some code and put it on a fully functioning production website that's driving their business, and Bob's your uncle, we'll have the solution. I've noticed on a few forums, so-called WordPress professional developers suggesting that they can develop a plugin instantaneously for a client on a live on a live Zoom. I can develop your solution and I can give it to you almost now and just put it into your live website.
Yeah.
And I listened to this and I just kind of shake my head. And I just think I'm losing the plot, really. Is it me? Is it me, Spencer? Am I just old?
No,
English?
you're missing the important point. I don't usually ask you to do this because we're just going to show you real quick. Can you share? Can you add this one thing in that I'm showing?
Yeah, sure.
The screen. Okay, so this is a screenshot from one of my demo sites where, again, I as a developer am mediocre. As a marketer, I think I'm exceptionally talented because I've been doing it since I was a kid. But coding skills only the last decade or so. AI has made it possible for somebody with basic coding skills in WordPress. I can do things in 1 hour that took me a month before to do. Now, this interface here is an example of what I was saying. This is an actual product. It's just I haven't released it to my audience officially yet, but it connects to the other things that I do. Where, as I was trying to explain to you, like this allows me to take any number of AI engines with a key, 11 labs for coding voice, choose which of the custom post types or standard post types I want to use as a source. I can create all kinds of different product prompt templates, like how to answer this and that, and I can save them. And who is the responder, like Dr. Hoover or Spencer Forman. Now here, along with whatever automated connections I have, I can input the question or the prompt, plus which template, which responder, and I can even automatically generate the voice, which, by the way, here's examples of that, where once I generate it, I save it in the very same website. Why is that important? Because then this actually becomes the content that's used by the AI along with the other stuff to generate new content.
Yeah, I think that's fine, but what I wanted to get from you is that there must be a middle ground here, because I don't want to come across as anti-productivity enhancements.
Okay,
so have you got any advice how you deal with a client that is not that says these things and isn't, it's great to use all this new technology, but you do have to test it. Has it always been these people that just hack away at a full production website and it's just put it on steroids? Has it always been there, really?
Well, there's a decision tree that I'm going to say I think is universal here in WordPress, and it's different than, let's say, using a tool like Wix or Weebly, Squarespace, or something that's like automatic one-page page builder. Let's start with the basic premise. You have to always start with, why does a client need a solution? Some clients only need a one-page web solution. They don't need anything dynamic. They just need a billboard. For those people, WordPress is infinite overkill. Infinite overkill. Okay. So once you've eliminated that, now you have people who need something dynamic. You ask, like, what do you want to do with it? Right, Weebly, exactly. What do you want to do? It's still there. What do you want to do with it? And if the features that you want to do involve things like transactional, membership, subscription content, if they have to do with like really attractive layouts or learning management, those complex things can be done elsewhere. But WordPress really offers a complex array of options in a very simple number of features, like Lego blocks. Now, the question I'm answering is, well, what's the point? What's somebody to do in the future? The thing that you need to do now is decide, does your client give two hoots about you being such an awesome designer, or are they okay with you just picking a decent starter template and the mechanics? That's my wolfhound. They're 10,000-year-old wolfhounds that I recreated from DNA. Or whatever the dire wolf was. So what I'm saying is, Kevin Geary would talk about this as well, but it has to do with FS, full site editing, or the page builders. Does it really matter to your client about design, or do they really just care about function? And for me, my clients are running businesses. Yes, they would like something reasonably attractive, but anybody who has an iPhone knows that the iPhones all look the same. It's what they do that matters. And I'm saying to my clients, we got some basic starter templates. Get your design thing from there. Take 2 minutes, but really a logo and a basic color palette, that's all you need. Other people, and Kevin services those needs, are professional designers. They need a set of tools to make the rainbows and the unicorns and whatever. Okay, so what I'm saying is, if your clients fit into the first category, the things that I'm alluding to are just snap together a select group of plugins with whatever AI tool you want to improve your ability to create content, post content, aggregate information, report to customers. And in doing so, you will have a box that you or your client owns that does the mechanics you need at a very low cost and at a very low cost of maintenance, versus going off into the woods and chopping down trees and building, forts out of wood and painting and all these as soon as you go into the detail work, you've lost the whole purpose of what I'm talking about, which is just an off-the-shelf, go to IKEA, have lunch, and buy stuff. And it works.
Over to you, Kurt.
I'm going to have to admit, I kind of got lost. I think we're at the last question, aren't we?
No, you got a question about the AI tools.
Oh, well, there we go. So here we are with, because I thought we kind of touched it, but are there any AI tools?
I told Spencer to save his
Yeah.
AI family of tools for this question, didn't I?
Save them. So let's just spit it out, man. What are the tools? Like, so what are your favorite AI tools or services that you're using?
Yeah. So what's interesting, sorry, I didn't mean to cut off what you're asking.
All right.
So this is like relationships. All right. So when you think of and you start to play with it, first I didn't understand this. Now I infinitely understand this. I have a teenager who's 14. I have an adult, two adults. One is 21, 24 is my sons. And I remember they're little kids. I had to speak differently with them. I got different responses as they matured and so forth. Okay. When you deal with LLMs, you have different companies providing different flavors and features, but they're also like teenagers to adults. Sometimes they're like infants to adults, and sometimes they're like adults with senility, because depending on who you try and when you try it and whether they've upgraded it, you can have a tool that's the best at coding. For example, out of all of the ones that you can live, right? You got OpenAI, you got Anthropic, which is Claude, you've got Gemini, you've got Grok, you've got Llama. I could go down the list, all the individual engines, and the Chinese one, I forgot the name of because I just was it again?
Was it
DeepSeek or DeepThink? I can't. DeepSeek, right?
Seek.
Okay. So of all of those, Claude Sonnet 3.7 has been the one that's given me the best results of coding. Now, what that means is Spence, instead of sitting down and going like hand coding stuff and like asking questions and searching Google and, you know, all the stuff that used to take me forever, I can figure out a pain point I want to solve that's either a standalone plugin or part of what I've offered and just get that solution in an hour, go to lunch, take a walk, and publish it. Now, the problem with Claude Sonnet is up until this week, yesterday, they set a limit on the output at what is called 200 kilobits, which is essentially like maybe like 200 lines of code. An average plugin is going to be 1,500 to 2,000 lines of code. So when it would give me the answer, it would go, I've got the best answer. I have hit my limit. And I think enough people like me complain that they at least put a continue button in. But it's sort of like if you asked your friend, hey, where should we go to lunch? And they go, I know the best restaurant. And they hit their limit. And you go, continue. So Claude Sonnet now has a plan. You can pay 10 times more to get 10 times more output, right? I can pay instead of 20, I can pay 200, or I can pay 5 times to get 100, which might be worth it to me because it's the best coder. Now, what does the best day-to-day stuff? OpenAI has 6-7 flavors. It's insane. I don't know what's going on with those guys. But the Mini 03 was the closest that was good at making code. And then they bastardized that thing and like cut its brain off because now it doesn't understand how to answer a question. Now they've got Mini 04, they've got 4.5, they got 4.5 with Canvas, they got super light, they got diet, they got kosher, they got everything under the sun. I don't know which one to use because every time I get used to using one, if you gave the same prompt to 4 of their models, you get 4 different answers. But I do think it's the best one for the general population because it's available everywhere for everyone. And now of the other 2 that are free and basic, before I talk about Perplexity, if you use Twitter, whether you like Elon Musk or not, if you ask Grok questions, it'll give you like 20 or 30 free, really good answers, believe it or not, even coding answers. But it's very unreliable because you can tell that they've taken all of the safety nets off of it for their own selfish purpose. Like if you ask a lunatic question of ChatGPT, it sort of goes, are you feeling okay? With Grok, it gives you a straight face answer that you'd be shocked at. Llama, a complete waste of time. I don't know what's going on there, but Zuckerberg does not know what he's doing with this thing, and it reflects itself. Try Llama, try to ask it to do anything, and you wonder what's happening.
Too busy counting the green.
Gemini is a more atrocious bastardization because that's Google. If you go into google.com and ask a question, it's using Gemini to come up with the first answer. Everybody sees this now. But if you ask it to do things like coding or, you know, what's the best topic, you know that they're dicking around with the algorithm on there. They're trying to turn it into a business model that is like pointing to answers that nobody would point to. Now, there's intermediary tools that are actually a hybrid without being a full compilation like you were talking about. So instead of using a service that has multiple LLMs, one of the LLMs that's unique is Perplexity. Perplexity is like a hybrid between a search engine, a librarian, a file cabinet, and a really good friend, because Perplexity is where I go to do research on my medical stuff. I have a lot of long-term chronic back pain and other surgical stuff. Perplexity allows you to create what we talked about, which was, I think, a reasonably private assumption of your data not ending up there. And you can put it into a folder. I know. Someday you're going to see my MRI. But the point is, I was able to, for example, put in my MRIs, put in my CT scans, put in my surgical reports, and actually do research on.
Oh my God.
I know this sounds funny, but hold on, Jonathan. I want to actually, because you're a person who had some medical treatment as well. Anybody who deals with the modern medical system, and I used to be a professional trial attorney, a licensed real estate person. I don't have a medical license, but I was dealing with malpractice. I know the people who are doctors. They're all my peers. They're 58-year-old men and women. Okay. They're just human beings. If you go to your doctor and you're lucky enough to get an appointment within the next decade, and they actually see you and they have more than 30 seconds to talk to you, their answer in no way possible is as good as what you can get right now by asking the question of Perplexity. I put my medical records into Perplexity, asked it a series of questions, and I compared it to what my doctors told me. And it was really scary. Sad, scary.
Oh my God, fathers.
In the same way, by the way, let's relate this to web developers. If somebody had a tool that was honest, like the kid in the Emperor's New Clothes story, and said, I just want to do this with my business, it would be able to give them an answer about, you don't need a $250,000 agency, and you don't need to pay HubSpot $1,700 a month, and you don't need to do the blah, 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 blah. But the problem is there's not one singular source of truth, but that's what happens. Perplexity is a cool, awesome, really neat tool for anybody who wants to just save a lot of stuff mixed with private data. And by the way, they have a feature where you can build a public web page, like on a topic, which is sort of like, what's that wiki? I forget, Jimmy Wales, this thing, Wikipedia. It's like a Wikipedia thing you can make on a topic that you can share publicly. Finally, there's Chris, and that's true, right? It's academic gold. And then finally, there's these compilation tools, which are services. I can name a bunch of them, but Lovable and Poe and Lindy, what they're doing is they're third-party people that do like I was showing I'm doing in a plugin form of like, just add all of your favorite engines into this thing, and then you can save private data. You can set up your prompts. You can do it in a way that essentially lets you cross-purpose around a bunch of teenagers instead of asking one teenager. Because here's what happens to me. At the end of the day, I save an infinite amount of time because I know what I want and I know what it was supposed to be. If you don't know what you want or what it was supposed to be, you better strap in, because your 14-year-old is just put you in the back of the station wagon with your hands tied and a blindfold, and they're driving with a six-pack in the front seat, because that's what most LLMs are giving people today. Just rando answers out of the,
Yeah, I think curation is the key word here. I think we're going to end the podcast part of the show. Can you stay on for another 10 minutes, or do you have to be
Sure.
off?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask Spencer about intellectual property, IP, and I'm going to ask him his views where we find the WordPress community in the beginning of April. But we're going to end the podcast show. So, Spencer, what's the best way for people to find out more about you, what your latest thoughts, ideas? What's the best medium?
You can get WordPress as a service directly from me at WPlaunchify.com. And my socials are all at SpencerForman, Forman.com. With what I offer, it's 100% money back guarantee, because the kit itself is the software, unlimited support from me via email, and the hosting if you want it. You can buy it a la carte. But the neat thing is that's like going into a SaaS company, but you own it and you control it for yourself and your clients. And that's the big differentiator, as I indicated. So come on and try it out. There's virtually nothing to lose. And it works with all the other stuff you want to use. You're just on your own recognizance. Once you start, attaching stuff to the things you bought from the Lego store, You have to either figure that out on your own or pay me to help figure it out. What I've done is gotten rid of all the uncertainty when everybody uses the same stuff that's been curated out.
That's fantastic. And Kirk, what's the best way for people to find out what your latest thoughts on what you're up to?
Business stuff, and the blog is at Mañana No Mas, mañananomas.com. And then if you want to connect person to person, hit me up on LinkedIn. Jonathan, I don't know if you know this or not, but I am the only Kurt Von Onen on LinkedIn, and easy to find.
Unique. Just unique. We're going to end the podcast, the show. We're going to have some bonus content. You can watch the whole of the interview plus the bonus content by going over to the WP-Tonic YouTube channel and subscribe to that. It's rapidly growing. I'm getting close to 10,000 subscribers. So please do that, and we'll be back next week with another great interview. Fully booked out for the next couple of months. I'm amazed at the quality of people that have agreed to come on this show for a chat. We will be back next week. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.
This podcast episode is brought to you by Lifter LMS, the leading learning management system solution for WordPress. If you or your client are creating any kind of online course, training-based membership website, or any type of e-learning project, Lifter LMS is the most secure, stable, well-supported solution on the market. Go to lifterlms.com and save 20% at checkout with coupon code podcast20. That's podcast20. Enjoy the rest of your show.
So
he's
got to go off.
Bye, Kurt.
So bonus content. So all this artificial intelligence, it's all fantastic, isn't it? But there's just one, apart from the society questions and the end of the world questions and being replaced by the robots, there's just one big question here, and that's intellectual property, IP. We've already had a few actresses that are suing certain IP companies for taking their voice, taking them. There's been a few deals done with some major publications. Other publications have just sold their IP to various large language model providers.
Right.
But it's still the canary in the coal mine. How in the next how do you see this playing out? Because how does, a lot of the law in business is around intellectual property, is it not? And, you've got a bit of experience in this. How do you see this playing out? Have you got any kind of thoughts that you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, right now we're in the stage where all the information available is based upon humans' previous knowledge. And then we're now seeing tools in the video, audio, photography realm, physical world realm, like building blocks, where the AIs are starting to become the originators or the creators. They would call these derivative. So crap in, crap out. You can't theoretically get better than the original input. But what they're talking about with this AGI is that there's going to come a point at which the AI LLM engines become self-aware. And in doing so, in theory, I don't know how this works, because I oftentimes wonder whether we're just living in a AI generated world ourselves. At some point, there's a spark of creativity that would allegedly come not from the original human source, but from some kind of pure, spark. Now, this gets kind of metaphysical, but what I'm saying is, at the point at which the AI is self-aware and it's able to create its own stuff, that's the point at which humanity has some concerns over what its motivations are, because kind of like in those science fiction movies where I think it was Aldous Huxley, or maybe no, I take it back. It was Arthur C. Clarke. But the rules of robots, number one rule is don't harm your creator, kind of thing. But as soon as the robots no longer follow that, we've got the potential problem of the Terminator scenario. More likely is the problem of bad actor human beings using the leverage of AI and forcing it to.
Yeah, I think I want to discuss with this, but I want to bring you back a little bit to the question, because I just want to put this to you. There seems to be this argument that the IP question, some people say, well, it's just like you get a book from a library, you read the book, and then somebody asks you a question about the book. A large learning model, it's a metaphor, but it's fundamentally just doing what I've just exampled.
Yeah.
And they said that can't, in no shape or form can that be made illegal. But then you got actors, they mimic her voice, or they get another actress to mimic, and everybody, it's like everybody's in with the game. Everybody knows that, yeah, it's another actress, but they're mimicking a celebrity, a brand, and the law says that if you've got a brand or you're a celebrity, you've got to defend your brand. Otherwise, you're going to lose your brand. So that actress has to, and she has got the resources, the financial resources to defend her brand. So when it comes to video, making videos of celebrities or products or brands, or copying their voice or copying their style of writing, is it not going to get a bit tricky? What's your thoughts?
Okay, so I appreciate you bringing the question back. I was on the road to there, so let me connect it, because I think your question is about intellectual rights and the value of that in the capitalist world. In the human-only world, there have been plenty of examples in the last 50 to 60 years of really unusual decisions of copyright law or trademark or, intellectual stuff. For example, I'm a Beatles fan. George Harrison's My Sweet Lord, right, being found guilty of copying or infringing or plagiarizing She's So Fine by I think it's the Chiffons or something. And you've got Ed Sheeran just spent like $5 million in 5 years defending himself that one of his songs was like a copy. This has been as old as forever, because that's greed. Greed. When you play music, you realize, in fact, somebody did a test on this, there's only so many chord patterns and notes. And I've been playing my whole life, but I'm not a music reader. I just understand that there's only so many ways you can make a rock and roll song, right? On a pentatonic scale. So it's just ironic to me that anybody believes that we can move into the future with the current 1890s based patent and copyright intellectual law system, where you have to go to court and ask human beings to decide whether an LLM had generated something intellectually unique, or it was derived from something that was training data 65 million steps removed from it. You see, in the old days, they would have George Harrison on the stand, or Ed Sheeran would be on the stand and go, and this is how I made the song. And I grew up and I heard this song, whatever. It was really never decided on the facts, though. It was decided on emotion. George Harrison agreed to lose. Ed Sheeran fought it tooth and nail and won. And so what we've got is a problem. You're going to ask human beings, who by then will be so dim-witted from using AI that they won't be able to know the difference. And a court system that I still believe fundamentally in the rule of law, but was never designed to decide questions of how does an AI LLM engine generate its content. There's no way to prove it.
I think it's the basic principle, isn't it? But I haven't got your knowledge on this subject. That's why
I'm saying you're asking us.
You've got the metaphor of the book, but then you've got, has not an individual that's got a unique voice that spent years spending promoting, building her or his brand, have they not got a right when they are being semi-ripped off?
Short answer, no.
No, you don't think
because,
so?
Here's why. in the past, those cases I referred to, and you've got other examples of this, like, you know, with literature and so forth. In the past, something that was not a word for word, note for note copy would still maybe win in the court of law. Okay. My opinion is, as we get moving forward and video has started to become created, we're going to all become saturated as human beings. And in the mindset in a courtroom of a judge or a jury, especially a jury, is going to be like, you're out of your mind to think that you can publish something and think that it's not going to be used for somebody else to make. And I want to ask you one question too, because you brought this up and I was trying not to be interruptive. When it comes to actors, let's say I'm a comedian like a Jim Carrey or a voice actor who, I remember the original Johnny Carson show with Jim Carrey and his Clint Eastwood with the eye, perfect. Like, in today's world, asking your question, wouldn't that be a violation of the intellectual property rights? Because you look and sound just like Clint Eastwood. You look and sound just like Johnny Carson. Arguably, that's the same thing, isn't it? Because if AI generates stuff and it's not note for note, word for word, letter for letter, but it just feels like that actor, isn't that exactly the same as a real actor pretending to be that person? Like,
it's totally out of my pay grade.
But I'm saying that's the argument.
What I'm saying is, you know, it's a cornerstone of our system. You know, you can take out a patent for a drug and make a lot of money from it for 20 years, or you build a technology, or you build a brand, or you're an artist and you have the right to be paid if you're you know, it's a cornerstone. I'm not saying, but what you seem to be suggesting is that there's going to be a fundamental change in the whole model. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes. Like I'll take it to a human being level. So let's say, I don't know, a hot actress, I don't know, Sydney Sweeney comes to mind, just her certain appeal to the marketplace or something like that, or Robert Downey Jr. It doesn't matter. If somebody was looking to protect themselves in the future, the thing that seems really solid to protect yourself on is your name, your brand. I'm Robert Downey Jr. I look this high and I have these glasses and I have this mannerisms. Those things could be definitive enough to be like note for note. But if AI or another actress or actor comes along, it's like, boy, she really reminds me of Sydney Sweeney, or, oh, he really reminds me of Robert Downey Jr. There's nobody that's ever going to courts that says that actor can't remind them of somebody. That's like, oh, he's the next James Dean. Oh, Pablo, whatever is from The Mandalorian. He reminds me of Burt Reynolds, right? Like there's all these things that people make a whole career on being similar to somebody before them. They just can't use, like Pablo Pascal can't say, I'm Burt Reynolds. He can't make, you know, one of Burt Reynolds, like The Longest Yard 3 with Pablo Pascal without getting into some kind of trouble, because that's too close to the brand. But he can just continue to have everybody go, man, you're like the new Burt Reynolds, aren't you? And, you know, accept it or not. Now, if somebody goes out of their way to replace a character, like in Back to the Future, there's a famous case that Eric Stoltz was fired and replaced with the guy who played, I can't remember his name, but the guy who played Marty's dad. It was a lot of controversy, but it didn't make the newspapers because Eric Stoltz just said, yeah, it's okay. I was fired. Like he gave in. If he had made a pissing contest out of it, you would have heard more about it. But that happened in Star Wars, right? With Grand Moff Tarkin, the actor, the famous actor was dead. They replaced him. And the new one, they replaced Carrie Fisher. Like they replaced Mark Hamill. You have to have permission to replace a person with their exact likeness. I mean, that's no questions asked.
So are you saying then that, like a lot of companies, a lot of Fortune 500, some of the biggest companies in the world, now I've got the name of the company, the Danish company that makes the weight loss drug, Zambet. You could not a competitor just go to a large artificial learning manager or artificial intelligence, give them all the facts, and they produce a drug? Boom, that's very similar, and they say it does exactly the same.
Yes, I need to.
Are we saying that that because a lot of companies, their value proposition is their intellectual property. Also, I think Matt's already called in Spencer, actually. All right.
Okay, sorry. I apologize for doing that. I needed my surgeon was calling. I just need to tell him.
Good.
All right. Sorry.
All right. So are you saying that a lot of what these companies rely on, which is intellectual property, is having 10, 20 years for a drug? Other examples, those days and the cornerstone of their valuation is rapidly coming to an end.
I'm saying that intellectual property law has always been very fluid. It's not my specialty, but I'm familiar with it. I used to do a little practice in that area.
Well, and you're a lot more familiar than I am.
Well, I mean, just not because I wanted it, it just happened that way. But when it comes to things, for example, look at our dear leader, Mr. Mullenweg, talking.
Yeah, well, that's why I thought
this
you must have read my mind, because it is in some ways relevant. That's why I thought I would go down this path with you. That his core argument is that WP or using WP or using certain language or using certain symbols, he has total control over. But in some ways, I think he's a bit late to the party, because
he's just missing the law. The problem is when you use the law as it's written, the thing I alluded to earlier is that people don't really understand how ridiculous it is in court. Anything can happen in court, literally anything. So all you're doing with the evidence that you built up, or by following the prescribed laws or norms or whatever, is you're just stacking more evidence in your favor, but it still doesn't guarantee the outcome you want. And when you do things that are literally in derivation or contradiction of the law, you just lower your chances. And that's where, in Mullenweg's case, it was very clear that WP was the thing prescribed for everybody to use instead of saying WordPress. So if a company came out with WordPress Schmerdpress, you're going to not have the right to keep that. If you said WP Schmerdpress, you're fine. He can't change that 18 years later.
I would have thought so.
You can't extend this magically in violation of either open source or in other terms. So you can't extend it into other things that it was very clearly prohibited or not allowed to be extended to. And so that's the point. The point is, companies will continue to try anything that's in their value or the shareholders' value or favor, but it doesn't mean they're going to win. And as time goes on, these set precedents for future behavior. And sometimes they get recodified into law so that, for example, like we see now in our environment, the shit that we all thought was like locked in stone has now been thrown out into the wind. Well, that's how the world works. So for the moment, I'm predicting that intellectual property law is going to suffer a lot of modifications based upon the capacity of AI to make a brand new character that looks just like Sydney Sweeney, and we don't have to pay Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah, I see where you're coming, because it's a bit like holding the tide back. I think what you're saying is there's just gonna. I forgot. I'm sorry. I've lost the name of the character that tried to hold the tide back, the ocean back. You're saying that you thinking the courts are going to be able to hold the tide back is a bit.
No, I mean, not. I think it's already. See, the problem is that there's not just one forum, and here's the other problem. And this is the world we're living in. This is why AI is so different. Back at the turn of the century, when there was oligarchs and there was like the robber barons during the Gilded Age, the reason that they were able to slow them down and stop them and get them to at least pretend to care about humanity was because there was physical things that they were trying to control that other people could stop. Like you could stop the steel industry, you could stop the railroad industry, you could stop the oil industry, because they needed physical manufacturing and production. Now, some dude in a cave somewhere offshore under the ocean could be generating AI, this, that, the other thing, and even sending out robotic drones, but there's no way to stop their bad behavior. So when everybody is left with the choice of either voluntarily complying with a norm for the good of all or not, we have a problem as human beings, because certain big actors, and I'm not going politics here, but like, you know who they are, who think they are above the laws that apply to everybody else, do whatever the F they want. And in doing so, the rest of us are left in a survival mode of how do we counteract a situation where literally they're now using the lever of AI to, without even being seen, change, affect, do crazy stuff. And that's going to be the brave new world problem, not just intellectual property, but just everything.
Have you got time for one more question, or do you have to be off?
Yeah. I asked the person to call me back in a little bit.
Right. Some people are very in the WordPress community. We're out of the first quarter. We're into the second quarter of 2025, which is quite amazing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are very pessimistic about WordPress. I'm not, actually, for all the theatre and I was going to say pantomime, but it's a little bit more serious for those that are really very involved in the drama. So I'm not going to use that word, but it has elements of pantomime. It's a kind of English theatre, folks, to my American audience.
I think everybody knows.
I used to love it as a kid. But I'm still very upbeat because I'm upbeat. And people say AI. Actually, I think AI, I think WordPress, because of the larger community, I actually are optimistic, but I'm not quite sure why. It's just a feeling that I've got that I think things are up. They're up and up for WordPress, but a lot of people disagree with me, and I'm not quite sure why I feel that way. Because I'm English, so all this drama, I should feel like I want to slit my throat, really, but I'm not. How would you respond to that?
Keep calm, carry on, because we're on a ride that none of us can get off of. I think a British, what was that, Pink Floyd? Yeah. Rolling on in quiet desperation is the English way. Is that there's a certain benefit to that. It's a very stoic attitude. I've been trying to adopt it myself because I had a meltdown recently about how the world is changing with politics and the lack of respect for the Constitution, rule of law, and common sense. And the thing is that we can only as individuals control so much. So what I suggest is working for me might be useful to others. I've found that by grounding myself, first of all, in relationships with human beings, it helps to remind me that most people are inherently good. Second of all, is that the drama of what goes on in the outside world doesn't often change you. So if, let's say, a tree fell in the forest and I didn't hear it, do I need to spend all day getting upset about it? Probably not. This AI thing is beyond all of us. There's nothing you or I or anybody else can individually do to stop it. So, like Joe Pantoliano in The Matrix, where he's talking, I think Neo maybe, he's got the steak. This steak, I know it isn't real, but it's delicious and I love it. He accepted the fact that he was in the Matrix and he just used it to his advantage, which is where I feel like I'm at the moment. I feel that there's a lot of change that are going to come to industry in general, especially online. We're not going to be staring at screens with keyboards. I am very bullish on WordPress because it is evolving from a do-it-yourself monkey around into just a platform of tools that, with what my version does, is curated to work for thousands of people and give them the same joy of going to IKEA.
Well, I just want to quickly interrupt. I think the key word to me is curation of community, curation of message in a world of unlimited video, unlimited everything. When it comes to digital, curation is going to be, otherwise you are just going to be totally overwhelmed or go totally bonkers, are you not?
Like a curation such as I go to a certain person to cut my hair, or I like certain restaurants, or I like certain rock bands. It doesn't mean that they're exclusively the only one that ever does those things. It means that I've chosen the way they curate their stuff as being to my tastes. And in WordPress, with so much freedom, anything could be built, which doesn't mean that I want that to go away. I want that to continue. I'm saying, in a world of 8 billion people, if half the people use the internet and they're using some tool like WordPress, I can offer them an experience that's more like going to IKEA or Lego store with my expert expertise across the various features, whereas other people, like talking about Kevin Geary, Kevin has chosen to focus on the people that are designers who want the tool that does the more advanced stuff in a more practical, hands-on way. He comes right out, like I'm coming right out, and says, this is not for the Wix, Weebly, Squarespace people. This is not for the pick a starter template people. This is not for the one-page website people. And similarly, I'm saying, if you're like a Kevin Geary person, you could benefit from what Minute Launch, what I offer, but not because of the design stuff, but because of the mechanical stuff. And those are the things that when you focus on as an individual, you can kind of avoid the world's uncertainty and just stay grounded in the fact that no matter what else happens, if we're all still here, that person is going to continue to look to me as their expert, that I'm their liaison to the complexities that they choose not to have to take the time to learn how to do, which is, by the way, as old a business as anything. That is what truly a consultant or an agency person should be doing, is like a concierge in a hotel. And all of the tools just got in the way because they were things that you could use as gatekeeper things. Like, I have a $100,000 video editing machine or a mixing board and you don't, haha, you have to pay me. Well, now everybody has all of the tools all of the time in an AI robot, but it acts like a drunk 13-year-old driving around with them in the back seat. They need somebody to steer the car and take over for them. That's what the job should be of most people in WordPress, if you were asking me that question, because it's very profitable and for a singular entrepreneur anywhere in the world versus what we had before, which did, even for my business, require a dozen people to manage all of the Frankenstein monsters. So I avoided my problem by saying, we no longer will fix Frankensteins unless you pay me $300 an hour to
well,
go.
It's that kind of middle ground between things that communicate that I have ability in specific areas that work with other building blocks, rather than attempting to build a all-embracing Frankenstein kind of SaaS model in WordPress, which I don't particularly. For a number of years I've called it a kind of wall garden metaphor that I utilize, and I think I consistently said that that isn't a great idea for WordPress. But I think we've had a great discussion. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Spencer.
My pleasure.
I think we've covered a lot of territory. Like I say, I am very upbeat, and I think you are when it comes to WordPress. We will be back next week with another great interview. We'll see you soon, folks.